kind of studies. That is Tuesdays, Thursdays from 5 to 6:15 and 211 Randolph.
Is it too late to sign up?
It is too late to sign up, but my class is open to the public. I feel like these spaces should be open to the public. And we typically engage in similar conversations to what's happening at this table or at this program. So if any of you are free, Tuesdays, Thursdays, 5 to 6:15, feel free to stop by at 211 Randolph. You'll be welcome. As I was considering what to say about false perceptions, I thought about my own personal narrative. But at the same time, I think there was a lot of really interesting things, very, very beautiful and prolific things said by people who just stepped off the mic. And I apologize if I twist these words or what have you, but I definitely took notes. Mark was talking about identity crisis. He said he wanted more than one race. And, you know, when I was thinking about that, it's just like, well, you know, race are typical categories that are packed, with stereotypes, right? You know, we see a stereotype before we see a person. And he was talking about that crisis, right? That negotiation of who am I? How do I see myself and how do others see me? And that ultimately becomes somewhat of a crisis. Angel, she went in a little bit deeper and said that society labels what's best to be, or society labels what best fits their situation. It's usually not in my best interest, right? And so when we think about these categories, we kind of got to think about the way in which power is packed into those categories and who gets a chance to name them. You know, when we get to Genesis, we think about Adam and Eve. Adam got to name all the animals and whatnot, and now we deal with a similar power situation where people define us in ways in which that we don't define ourselves, and we have a very interesting negotiation of time, space, and place. Jaquan said, do you know who I am? A simple question, right? One thing we think about is World Star. You know, does World Star really define us? Why is World Star so popular? Why are these images that really don't represent us so popular? Why does that serve to define us before we're able to define ourselves? And what aspect of that definition do we embody ourselves? Those are real questions that we have to ask and negotiate. And it ultimately puts us in a place where we ultimately subtract from ourselves. But then one thing that stuck out the most, perhaps the thing that stuck out the most, was self-discovery. And that's kind of what I took from Brother Shamar's poem. You know, he was talking about how he became I. Within that negotiation that everybody else was talking about, everybody was talking about the same type of imposition. But then Brother Shamar said, I'm going to find myself. You know, I will eat watermelon. And that really speaks volumes, right? Corinne talked about having to put on a circus, having to put on a show because people wanted her to speak Chinese, wanted her to prove she was who she said she was, as if her saying who she wasn't enough. Oftentimes we have to redefine ourselves when people already have set definitions of who we are. And when you think about that, we kind of got to think about the psychological aspect of it. We pay a tax by being perceived different, right? There is a social tax for being anything other than white. And even within white, being poor white, there is a huge social tax to pay for that, that ultimately will define your life satisfaction. That's a reality. So within that negotiation itself, we also have to think about these ideal and material realities that define who we are and what we can be. The American dream is that, if I work hard enough, I can go ahead and get mine. But the reality is that the American dream is just that for most people, a dream. We wake up and then go day to day, oftentimes having to defy how people view us. And, kind of think about that type of pain. Mia said, I shrink the essence of me talking about I shrink that. The tear tattoo on the back of my eyelid shrink the essence of who I am. And I mean, that's deep, right? Because these tears that we shed, may they not be physical. I mean, let them be spiritual, right? Because it's a hard thing. I mean, even me as a PhD, I have to prove myself. I have to prove that I'm better than my competition, just to be accepted as somebody who deserves to be in the program. I'm fully funded, just like everybody else, but, you know, at the end of the day, I still have to prove myself. I think I do a good job, though.
You are.
But, yeah, I'm all right. I do what I gotta do, just to get by, and it's not making no matter what. But, then that kind of brings me to, I guess I'll kind of end with Curtis. Curtis asked a sociological question. Why can't we stop asking bigoted questions, right? You know, it's just like, why do these bigoted questions, why are they asked? Why don't we just stop? I mean, and, you know, once these questions stop, it kind of gives us a chance to ask real questions. You know, like, do all you eat watermelon? Do you like fried chicken? You know, just like, once we stop asking these questions that really don't have positive answers, progressive answers, we can get to real questions like, how do you define yourself? How do you negotiate between who you are and racist conditions that are imposed on you? I mean, once we get to these real questions, we can move forward. And I think that is one of the issues that we deal with, perhaps one of the biggest issues when negotiating race and race relations, because, you know, in the past we were taught that race is some bigoted, cross-burning Klan member who hates all black folks. And I mean, the reality is that that dude who was burning the cross was allowed to burn the cross by the mayor, was allowed to burn the cross by the police officers. I mean, this was a large system. It wasn't just that Klansman, not to mention, it wasn't just the Klansmen, it was the people who were selling the body parts of the dismembered, dead, hung people. I mean, hanging was America's first pastime, right? I mean, that sweet fruit, or that strange fruit rather, that the crows plucked and the flies sucked, that strange fruit, those dead, burned bodies that were hanging from trees, they were dismembered and body parts were sold at general stores. This was America's pastime from slavery up until the 60s. We are less than one generation removed from that type of racism, but to assume that that is going to be the definition of racism is to undermine the current of racism that perhaps impedes progress, because the reality is that over time, once racial progress was made, racism evolved. And racism evolved in a way in which that we can't see nor define it using a past lens. And I think that is our problem in dealing with, because from that problem, we get these stereotypes that define us before we're allowed to define ourselves. And I think that is a place in which most people address their personal experience, is these imposed definitions that come from this long history of racism where we define people as less than, not as, other than us. That's
That was deep. That was dope. I'm a little less prepared. I expressed interest in being on the panel like last minute. Tom was gracious enough to be like, "Hey, we'll throw you in." So hopefully I don't let you down, Tom. Because I'm less prepared, I'm not gonna really, I don't have notes or anything like that, but I do have a few things to say. I hope that there's a portion for questions. I'm a lot better at asking questions or answering questions. So one question I hope somebody asks is how I face, some false perceptions on campus, because I have a lot of stories. But anyway, the first thing, I was on my phone because I was taking a few notes, and the first thing I would like to address is the bigoted questions. I don't think those need to stop. And I say that because I feel like we just need to change the way we answer them. Because if they do stop, then that means curiosity stops. And is in a strange way, when those questions are answered, they're asking because they don't understand. So if they don't understand, it's our duty, as you know. I think black people are very strong people. So as a strong people, we need to bear that burden and go ahead and answer those questions in a way that we enlighten them. Now there's a level between confusion and disrespect. We don't deal too well with disrespect as a people overall, so handle it as you please. But please be mindful and careful when you do so. Also, how do you know me when I'm still finding myself? That was something that I grabbed from a lot of everybody. People are growing, people change. It's something that just is. I'm not the same as I was yesterday. I won't be the same as I am today. So, don't pinpoint me, don't box me in. That's something I have a big issue with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not one way. I'm not the other way. I just am the way I am. So if you want to perceive me and be correct and accurate in doing so, please take the time to ask me questions. Get to know me. Like I said, I'm better at answering questions than I am just telling you about me, because I don't know where to start. I'm an artist, so I have a few. I want to pull from a few of the works that I've done that really address perception. A piece I call "Pray." It starts off as I'm trying to contemplate how I'm going to change the race, how I'm going to take black back and give it a new face. See, perception is we got wild ass kids that tug on trigs and they gonna be about shit, but that's generalization. That's not true cross the nations. Folks done sowed in bad seeds, and I'm here to replace them. So trust when I say I want it. Young black man with dreams that I want it. Y'all need it, believe it. I'm here, receive it. And that to me that's how I feel about black America's perception in the world. I feel like they don't look too highly on us. I don't feel like, there's too much high hopes. I feel like there's a ceiling. And not only do, the man or whoever the man is, perpetuate that, but we do it ourselves. So I think we need to call attention to it not only when we see other people, assuming, because my mom told me assuming is making an ass out of you and me. So, even if it's somebody that is of our own, check them, because it's our duty to make sure that we're taking care of that. We're nipping that in the bud. I just found out that's the way you say that. I used to say bud all the time. But, another thing I think is important to know is that, I think I'm a history buff. So I don't like to do a lot of reading. I'm not a big reader. I'm just starting to get on reading, but the History Channel is my favorite channel, and I like to listen to people. So something that sticks with me is the story of the Caribbean Springs. And it pretty much talks about how if you drink shallow, you seem to think that you've got that taste in your mouth and you know everything about what it tastes like. So you skim the surface and you seem to know all of it. But when you drink deeply, you start to realize that you know nothing at all. So I feel like a problem is people, they take that concept and they apply it to interactions with people. They feel like, oh, because I know a little bit about black people or Asian people, that means I know it all. That's not the truth. Because when you dive deep inside of it, you know what I'm saying? Black people, they're ghetto. Look at how they're niggering and stuff. You know what I'm saying? What is that? What is that? I don't know what they're doing with that. Resources are low, so we have to do what we have. But you don't see that because you don't ask those questions. You just see the surface level. So I challenge everyone to drink deeply and take your cup and dip it a couple times. And, before you start to put a label on somebody or something, anybody, woman, black, purple, Kappa, Alpha, Omega, anything that categorizes us. I am a proud man of Omega Psi Phi, but I definitely am not like a lot of my brothers. And a lot of my brothers aren't like me. So please don't box us in. And I say that for everyone. So the last thing I want to share is it's a song I wrote when I was 16. And this is where, like, when I say, how do you know me and I don't know myself, this is when I was like really like in this self-searching thing. And it's called Questions. It's who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I me? And when I look in the mirror, who am I supposed to be? Why do I smile just the way I do? How do you see me? Why am I blind to things that everyone else can see? Oh, I have questions, just like you. I have questions. What do I do when the answer is not clear? The response is hard to hear. I look above and my question fades away. My question fades away. Thank you.
Now, I should have also mentioned that both of the panelists are also artists as well, so sorry for not having y'all with the warning of that. So, with that being said, this brings us to our final part of the show. As you can see, there is a podium right in the middle of the aisleway. For anyone who has any questions, comments, concerns, or general ideas they would like to voice out to the public, now is your time to do so. And as Dustin said earlier, he was really hoping for a couple questions, so don't let him down.